I think we're live now. We'd like to welcome everybody to our work session. Today is February 1st, 2021. We appreciate everybody that was able to make it out tonight on this snowy evening. If we could go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we could ask you to call roll, please. Or I guess we'll do the pledge first. I think we have it on video with one of our students leading it. All right. Thank you, Amy, for coordinating that. And I believe those were some students from one of our elementary schools over at Heritage. We appreciate that. It's always nice to have the students be involved. If we could go ahead and take roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Hilberg.
Here.
Ms. Pavlik.
Here.
Mr. Ross. Here. Ms. Parkhurst.
Here.
Mr. Skidmore.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Item B, we have approval of the agenda. We are not voting on anything tonight. Therefore, we don't normally have public participation at the work session. So I don't see a need for that tonight unless somebody would want us to do that. But otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the items, the 3 items for discussion on the work session.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. I made the motion. Okay. If you could please call roll.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Ross. Aye. Mr. Hilberg.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Sable. Thank you.
Sorry, mic wasn't on. Parents and students figuring out their schedules first thing in the morning. I do encourage parents to try and stagger their times, knowing that if everybody comes at once, it's going to be pretty backed up. And I'm going to have some further conversation with the high school about how that could potentially be doable. We do want to see how it goes, though, for another day or two. We did have some inclement weather this morning, which definitely did not help the situation in terms of the traffic. The second update I want to provide the board is in regards to vaccinations. As you all know, we're very fortunate to have been selected as a county as some of the first school districts to be able to administer the vaccinations to staff. That vaccination clinic is going to be occurring on Thursday. There's 2 school districts hosting the clinics in the county. We are one of those. We're going to be hosting it here at the high school. The second location is in Brunswick. So we've been communicating with Brunswick City Schools the last couple of days. So we have similar types of programming in place for the actual distribution of the vaccine. I do want to thank Discount Drug Mart. They are working with us in order to make this happen. We're really the hosts and they're the ones running the clinic. but we're very fortunate to be able to work with them. They've got experience in running these sorts of clinics. I estimate that we'll have approximately 1,800 educator and school personnel coming through the high school on Thursday to receive vaccination. So those are individuals from our school, from Wadsworth. We've got a couple private schools that are included in that, the Career Center. So we're going to have several schools coming to us to receive vaccination. Those are going to start at 7 a.m. On Thursday. I did want to make the board aware that I do anticipate that there's going to be a media presence at the vaccination. Currently, we have heard from every major news outlet in the Cleveland-Akron area, newspapers as well as television stations. The community relations directors, Amy for us, between the school districts have been collaborating and handling that. So it's handled in a similar fashion in both districts, and similar answers to questions are given as well. In addition, Discount Drug Mart has offered their services within their PR and marketing department. So they are working directly with us as well. And they're actually probably going to be leading the bulk of what the community interaction or the media interaction is going to look like. We are designating an area in the building for media so it can be separated from people actually coming in to get their vaccinations. We're going to determine for sure what that location is tomorrow. We're meeting with Discount Drug Mart in the morning and doing a tour of the facility in regards to where we're going to hold the clinic, and that'll determine the press. In terms of the media, we have had requests from them to be able to take a video or a picture of a school person receiving their vaccination. We want to make sure we're working close with Discount Drug Mart so we're not in violation of any HIPAA or privacy laws. I want the board to know if you do see that on the news on Thursday night, that is only happening if that individual has signed off on permission to allow themselves from being taped. It is important to us to protect the privacy of our employees and really the employees across Medina County. Right now, and I literally just got our list emailed to me as we were sitting down for this meeting tonight, and I forwarded it to Jim, and he's actually back at the board office with our HR department going through that list. I anticipate that we will have approximately 800 individuals from Medina City Schools. So we saw quite an increase from our original survey. We did send out a questionnaire a few weeks ago asking staff if they would receive the vaccination if it was available to them. At that time, we were looking at around 680 or so people who indicated they would. That number went up quite a bit now that the opportunity is actually before us. And I'm sure part of that is an increased comfort level, simply because the vaccination has been out there already. It's not as new as it was. We are not requiring anybody to take the vaccination, so that's up to our individual employees. I do anticipate, however, that once we get through the second vaccination, that it could impact some of the decisions that we make in regards to COVID. And what I mean by that is we're going to continue to follow all COVID procedures. We're going to continue to daily monitor and report any potential COVID cases. However, if we're in a situation where we might be considering going back online or back to a hybrid, one of the things we will take into account in making that decision is whether that second vaccination has been received by staff. So it's another positive piece to the puzzle that is going to help our students stay in school. I'm very appreciative to Governor DeWine and making schools a priority in getting our students back into the buildings. I know there's schools in Ohio where students still haven't been back face to face. We're fortunate not to be in that situation, and we're able to work things through. Any questions from the board or further conversation regarding COVID or the vaccinations that are coming up?
It's very exciting. Very exciting.
Is exciting. It's been a lot of work the last few weeks and today, but we're very, very excited. And I know Amy and I were talking earlier today how we're part of history. Medina City Schools and this vaccination clinic for the entire county. And we're fortunate to be in a county where we are able to make that happen, because I know Summit County is also at the top of the list, and they're having to do individual schools just because the county's so big that they don't have a choice. So it's going to take them a longer period of time than it is going to take us to get our educators vaccinated. Graduation and end of year activities. And it might seem early to be talking about this, but it's really not. And I'm sure some parents are beginning to wonder what's going to happen with these activities this year. First, I want to talk about the end of year activities, and what I'm referring to with this are the awards ceremonies, the promotion ceremonies at the elementaries. A week or two ago, I did have discussion with our building principals, and we're going to make every effort to make these end of year activities occur. Last year, we canceled the bulk of them, especially at the lower grade levels because of COVID. We're more knowledgeable on the COVID situation, and we've become more skillful with the COVID protocols. So some of these events may not look quite like they have in the past, but our goal is to make them happen. For instance, one of the ideas we threw around is if it's in the spring, maybe the elementary promotions can occur outside. So I do want the board to know we are working on that. The big one, though, is graduation. We have reached out to Akron to try and rent their facility. And they are currently not renting any of their facilities. We don't want to leave it up to Akron and wait to see what's going to happen. So we are going to begin planning our graduation for in our football/soccer stadium. We feel that we can set up the stadium where we could run a full graduation. We would need to rent some equipment such as a stage, better sound system so people can hear us on both sides of the stands. But I don't anticipate those expenses will be any more than what we've historically spent to rent out in Akron. I'm kind of excited about the prospect of using the stadium. I know Akron has a nice facility for us, but it's such a drive out away from Medina that I think it could be a really cool experience to have it in the football stadium. Of course, the downfall with the stadium is the potential of rain. So we will be scheduling not only a graduation date, but a rain date as well, because we want to make sure the event happens. We are hoping that we are going to get lucky. The other thing that we're discussing is potentially changing the time. Graduation has occurred typically around 1 or 2 o'clock. That's not because that's the time we necessarily wanted. That's the time that Akron told us we had. So with it being outside, we are talking about maybe doing it later in the day, maybe more towards 4 o'clock. I am concerned if it's too hot out, which it can be hot in May at that time. The other thing is we want to try and still be able to do the projection of the graduates and stuff on the screen. And obviously, if you're in the middle of the day, it's going to be very hard to see that on a projected screen. We are fortunate, though, to have a lot of dedicated people in order to make this happen. As much as we receive praise for the graduation we put together last year and how personal it is, I have no doubt that people are still wanting and thriving for more of that traditional graduation experience for their students. So our goal is to make that happen. I don't want to count out that it could end up being at Akron or another facility. But we don't want to fall behind. So right now we're focused on the stadium, and if other opportunities arise, we'll look at those as they do. If we do end up being able to go back to Akron, it'll be very easy for us to plan because we've done it there for so many years. We're in the stadium. We haven't done it in the stadium in a long time. I'm sure it's been done in the stadium before. So we're going to be working through some logistics with that, as well as COVID procedures where people enter, figuring out the amount of tickets we're going to be able to provide families so that there's assuming social distancing. But that process is moving forward, and I'll continue to provide the board with updates as we start getting things into place. But really those conversations, they've been happening for a month or so now, but we really met this morning in a committee and really dug into things.
Mr. Sable, quick question. Would our PAC have capacity in some way if it's a rain alternative?
Utilizing the PAC would be a challenge. It does not have the capacity with social distancing. That is something that we could discuss. However, if we use the PAC, then maybe the 4 tickets we can give a family in the stadium would have to be 2 tickets, just parents. So we can have further discussion about that. I think if we decide to use the stadium, I'm just speaking for myself, but I'd prefer to try and make it happen in the stadium because we'll have already rented everything and have it all set up in the stadium ready to go. We do have a tentative date of, I believe it's May 22nd. That date is not set in stone though. We need to figure out in terms of the rental of the equipment, the availability, because in talking to other school districts, I think there's going to be a lot of districts doing their graduations in their stadiums this year. Any questions about graduation?
Mr. Sable, no questions, but just a couple of comments and a sincere thank you. I think that the stadium graduation is going to be exciting, something that has never been happened or has never happened as far as with this graduating class. They've missed out so much on this year. So I'm beyond thrilled to hear that it's going to happen. And also to rain dates, so that'll give families the opportunity right up front to know that could possibly, because this is Ohio, we know the weather can change every 10 minutes, for sure. And then one other question I had, this last spring, the inductees for the National Honor Society, they were not able to be recognized. There was talk about doing it in the fall, and we know how the fall went. Is there going to be a makeup ceremony for last year's National Honor Society, or will it be combined with this year?
That's a good question, and I don't have an answer for it. So I'm going to need to reach out to the high school and have them get further information. We often have very large NHS classes, so I don't know if we're going to be able to combine them, but potentially doing 2 ceremonies to give those kids that opportunity.
Thank you.
And Mr. Sable, I appreciate all your efforts with that. I know last year turned out really well, given the circumstances, and we heard a lot of positives with it, although I know it was quite a bit of the whole 3-day period of the filming and everything, and just the many, many hours that went into it. So this sounds exciting, and I think having it in the stadium will be very unique. So that's great. So thank you for working through those options and all the work the administration is doing. Thanks.
And just one last thing about graduation, I was just thinking about that I want to mention to the board, because I know every year this is such an important honor for board members to be able to hand diplomas to students. We're not going to make a decision until we get closer to the date, but we don't know if we're going to be able to physically hand diplomas depending on where we're at with COVID. However, we talked about it today, we are going to set things up so that board members are there with the students when they're crossing, and there's an opportunity to recognize and congratulate them.
Oh, and Mr. Sable, too, if we could remind the senior class that there's deadlines coming up as far as cap and gown ordering, have to get that, and senior pictures, because they are taken in Brunswick. at the Life Touch studio there. And I believe they extended their deadline to March, if I'm not mistaken. So
The third discussion item for this evening, I want to invite Mrs. Cassidy, our Director of Instruction, to share what's going on with the Portrait of a Graduate, as well as the strategic planning process. We had a very good meeting a couple weeks ago with our committee. The committee is getting together again on Wednesday to continue work on this process. So Tina's going to report out on what was accomplished at the past meeting, which was a lot. And we got a lot of compliments about our community and our people who were involved from the impact group who's done this with many different districts.
Hi, good evening. So like Erin said, we had a very positive first meeting of Portrait of a Graduate. We had around 100 people attending total, which is a lot. And I know that you probably have been in meetings where there's a lot of people. And when a lot of people attend, sometimes no one talks. And then that's very awkward. And I think that was one of the things that the impact group was a little worried about initially, but that wasn't the case. Everybody on the committee was so invested in participating. We got so much great feedback. It was really a very positive experience. And like Erin said, the impact committee or the impact group thought that it was one of the best meetings they had, one of the best portrait meetings they had. So that was really positive. We had subgroups of all our major stakeholders at this meeting. We had community members, parents, students, teachers, paraprofessionals, administrators, and board members. So we had all of our major subgroups represented there. And what they did was they started off asking us, what is our vision for the future of Medina City schools? And all of these questions that we're going to kind of go through were posed to the group so that we could start thinking about what do we want for Medina City schools, so that when we go next week to think about the competencies, we'll have that basis to work from. So what I just put a sampling of the answers. We had so many responses to that question. All of the answers are on the website, which I will go over at the end of the presentation. But these are just a sampling of some of the things that came up over and over again. So what the committee said was, for the vision of Medina City schools, they wanted students who were good communicators and collaborators. They wanted graduates ready to enter the world, no matter what path they chose, university, military, or just work. Increased job readiness programming, internships came up a lot. Again, with STEM and inquiry-based learning experience, they talked a lot about real-world experiences in the classroom, critical thinking and innovation, collaboration between the district and the community, a focus on emotional intelligence, empathy, and increased access to social emotional health resources, focus on respecting diverse cultures, 21st century buildings, and strengthened early learning opportunities. So that's kind of, again, just a short summary of what they talked about for vision. The next thing the impact group asked us to consider were what were our district strengths? What should we celebrate because we have been doing well at these things? And some of those answers were, first, they were very complimentary to our staff. They said we had an incredible staff and administration. They were very complimentary about the response to the COVID pandemic. They really enjoyed having the opportunity for input, and they felt that we responded well to the input. Music and arts programming came up. They appreciated our focus on innovation, our district counseling and mental health partnerships. They felt that we work within a defined budget, that we have outstanding customer service, and our gifted programming was some of the things that they felt we should celebrate. The next question posed was district challenges. What are areas that require deeper planning and resource allocation? So some of the answers included a further awareness of underserved students. Some people on the committee felt that that's something we don't think about all the time, that we should really pay more attention to. Increased opportunities for inquiry-based learning, developing student passions came up quite a bit, innovations, and career exploration K-12. Equity among buildings, and that was actually in the building structures. Increased student input on building and curricular design, promoting equity in course programming opportunities, and focus on diverse programming. And some of this actually came from our students. Our students were really very articulate, and they were pretty impressive, I think, at that meeting. And they talked about how they want more diverse programming, and they want that programming to be available to all students, not just some. So they talked about diverse rather than accelerated.
Yeah, and when that actually came from a student, I was really impressed with that student's comment. I believe he said something to the extent of, we need more options, not more levels, which I thought was an interesting way to put it.
Yeah. Relationship building, social emotional wellness, and mental health focus, and then also reaching residents that no longer have a connection to the district, which is always something we strive to do. Next, they asked district opportunities. Are there available opportunities that we do not currently leverage? Some felt deeper links to the business community, looking maybe possibly into grants and donations. Student internships came up again, sharing success and deeper community awareness of the things that are going on in our district, early childhood partnerships, advanced CCP and dual enrollment offerings, service learning requirements came up quite a bit, and then state level advocacy also. And then we asked district threats. What are items for which we need to prepare? So those things included state testing, unfunded mandates, our slowing community population growth, a future pandemic, lack of diversity in the district, and school safety. Again, that isn't a comprehensive, it isn't everything that we talked about, but that comprehensive list is on the website. So if you're interested, you can go on the website and take a look at that. Our next meeting, like Erin said, is Wednesday, February 3rd from 6 to 8 p.m. And at that meeting, we're going to be using all those notes we just talked about, and we're going to spend the bulk of the time in small groups. So the impact group has created small groups of, I think, between 10 and 15, and those groups are already predetermined. They'll put us in breakout rooms within, I think we're using Zoom, so they'll put us in breakout rooms, and then we'll start discussing what are the competencies that we want to build in our students, using, again, the notes from our last meeting. So check out the district website for the full set of notes again. And Amy said she put that on the front page under Erin's welcome message. So it'll be right there for anybody who's interested in taking a look at those.
That was a great summary of the meeting. Thank you, Mrs. Cassidy. And we appreciate it. Those of us that I think the board got to sit through some of that and observe it. And as you said, we were so impressed with all the speakers, but especially the students.
Mm-hmm.
They just seem to be years beyond in maturity of what you would expect. And they had very good insights. So it's fascinating. And it's interesting because you wouldn't normally do this with Zoom or Google Meets or however we're doing it. And yet it seems to really lend itself for people to be able to communicate that way. And we had quite a few people on that meeting.
Yeah,
there
almost 100.
Almost 100 people. So to get that many people to be able to hear each other and to do that in an expedited way, they did a very good job doing the analysis. Impact did. So I think it's really positive, the work that they're doing and that you're doing with them. So thank you. And anything else?
Yep, that's it for discussion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Mr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst,
Aye.
Mr. Hilberg,
Aye. Aye.
Ms. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Ross. Aye. Thank you.
The attendees will have an executive session would be the board, Mr. Chambers, Mr. Sable. As far as I know, I think that's it.
Hey, Brian, somebody's going to send you an invite to the next meeting.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I'm going to get off that one.